Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. And yes, finally, we're getting back to the Down the Rabbit Hole series. We are going back to that Jenny McCarthy interview. And we're just going to read a paragraph because, as per usual, using my always flawless logic, we are literally going to tear down the argument. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm tired. I am so tired of my diagnosis being treated as though it's some infectious terminal disease. I'm tired of parents literally crying that they would rather their kids have preventable diseases and remain alive. That they would rather they have those diseases. You know, the ones that used to wipe out entire civilizations and was the primary reason for high infant mortality rate since forever. But autism. Autism won't kill your child. Whooping cough or complications from measles can. Okay? The reason why these diseases don't hit with the same impact that they used to is because of said vaccines. You all are benefiting right now from what is called herd immunity, because enough people are still getting their inoculations that it keeps it at a minimum. But if this stupidity continues to go on and larger numbers of people continue to do this, that herd immunity is not going to be around forever. And we can, over time, if this is not addressed properly, see a rise in infant mortality rates that is just absolutely abhorrent. Okay, but let's go ahead and read the paragraph first, and then I'm going to show you what I digged up this morning. So, to the paragraph. This one states, many scientists believe we're simply diagnosing autism differently now. Both overdiagnosing it in kids who don't have it and spotting it better in kids who do. That makes it look like the condition is on the rise when it's not. Okay, let's start with the first one. Your opinion on whether or not my diagnosis is valid is inconsequential. It doesn't matter. You want to know why? Because Jenny McCarthy, author of this softball piece, how do I put this? You're not the ones who get to gatekeep who gets diagnosed as autistic and who doesn't. You are not the final end-all be-all who gets to determine if I am who I am, or if I was properly diagnosed. You don't want to know why? You're neurotypicals. And you're not just neurotypicals. You are unqualified, untaught, and uneducated in anything that has to do with diagnosing a person with autism. Okay? So it's a question of trust. Okay? Are you going to trust a neurotypical mom with too much time on her hands and a narcissist streak that is just stunning and would make people even maybe... No, I won't go there. Anyways. Are you going to take Miss Google degree and her opinion and that of this author who thinks that they, neurotypicals, with no medical training whatsoever, has the right to gatekeep the autism diagnosis? Or do you trust the doctors that have spent years, some of them even decades, in the medical sphere where this is their area of expertise. Because I'm going to go with the doctors. And for all those who are like, but you're not like my child. I'm 41 years old. Of course I'm not. I've had a whole ass life with assistance to get to where I am, to be the person you see now. Of course I'm not your kid. I grew up. I got the support I needed. If you were to rewind the clock back to my childhood, I guarantee you, that's when you would see the real similarities with your child. To scream at an adult autistic that you're not my kid is not a reasonable argument. Of course we're not. We're adults. It's just, they don't even try. They don't even try. But let's read her response, shall we? Okay, this one says, all you have to do is find a school teacher or principal and ask them that question. They would say they've never seen so much ADHD, autism, or OCD as in the past. Honey, you are so full of shit and you can't even see it. But it wasn't there in the past. No. They were just cast out as misfits, bullied to hell and back. The kids that you ostracized, the kids that you made fun of, the kids that you shoved around on the playground, the kids that you would never invite to your birthday parties, the kids that you would never invite at recess to come play with you and your friends, the kids that used to spend recess walking up on a hill and reading because for reasons that they can't understand, nobody wanted to try and be their friend. If you think back, Jenny, I'm pretty sure you can find those kids within your memories. We were there. We've always been here. The only difference is we now have the tools to recognize what's going on. Want to know why? Because medical science evolves as we learn. But they never saw it before because they were never trained to know what to look for, especially in cases like mine, where you have a straight A student and the only areas where they seem to really struggle is with social and sensory. Now they are. But there's so many. Yes! But we're still about 1 to 2% of the population. Not nearly what anyone would call epidemic numbers. Let me continue here. I think we're overdiagnosing it maybe 1%. Now you look around and there are 5 shadows, kids with disabilities in every class. Bitch, they were there previously. Just because they didn't have a name for it at the time does not mean that those students weren't there. There are a lot of people getting diagnosed in their adulthood, middle-aged, even 60-year-olds, who have always been this way. They didn't contract autism somewhere down the line. It's not cancer. You can't contract it. It's not a viral disease. It is a developmental issue. Okay? So sitting there saying, but there's more. I'm glad you asked, Jenny. Allow me to educate you. Now, I've spoken on this briefly before about the DSM-4, the changes, and when everything spiked. If you all remember back, everything began really spiking around 1994, 1995. Allow me to elaborate. We're going to start first with this NPR article. And we're just going to kind of read through it here real briefly. NPR's Juana Summers speaks with Dr. Alan Francis about his piece in the New York Times titled Autism Rates Have Increased 60-fold. Let me take a look here because I'm not here for pseudoscience. Alright, here we go. The DSM is something of a Bible for mental health professionals who are looking to diagnose and treat a wide variety of mental illnesses and neurological disorders. It's almost like a psychological encyclopedia, if you will. Alright, this is from All Things Considered, NPR. This person says, I'm curious about your timing. In your piece in the Times, you wrote that the explosion in autism rates have become fodder, as you called it, for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Don't get me started. The health secretary's conspiracy theories. Is that why you've decided to speak out now? We're all speaking out. Worm brain needs to go. Worm brain's gotta go. Just saying. Francis, exactly. When I think if you searched worldwide, you could not find a less suitable person to be leading healthcare efforts in the United States or the world. Go off! Go off! And when he began redirecting resources vitally needed for research into causes of autism and the best way of treating it back to trying to figure out a way, employ a deceptive method of proving the vaccine theory, I felt it was necessary to speak. Thank you. You are literally beating a dead horse. Like, stop, it's already dead. It has been debunked multiple times. Multiple times. But Big Pharma, oh my god, here we go again. Do not make me get out the soapbox and a bullhorn, because I will. Even outside in the cold and rain where it's threatening snow, I'll do it right now. Anyways, let me go ahead and continue here. Where was I? And it became even worse when he fired the people on the Vaccine Advisory Committee for the CDC and hired hacks to try and pursue a vaccine conspiracy theory that has been the passion of his life for the last 20 years. And we're trusting Worm Brain with public health. I need you all to know that. Summers. I'll just note that Kennedy's assertion that vaccines cause autism has been debunked repeatedly. Repeatedly. In every single study. No one yet to this day has replicated Andrew Wakefield's false findings. Anywhere. Anywhere. Anybody think that's a coincidence? Let me go ahead and continue here. There has been a host of studies that prove they do not. The fact does remain that there is still no clear answer on what causes autism. Can you say that the single biggest factor driving the explosion in autism rates is driven by ways in which definition was changed? Yes! Francis, you know what happened was, in 1994, what did I tell you all? Pay attention. Turn the volume up. We added a condition that was called Asperger's disorder. That was a very mild form of some of the same symptoms that occur in classic autism. Classic autism is absolutely unmistakable. The onset is before the age of 3. Severity and disabilities are tragic and lifelong. Oh my god, here we go with the tragic. We are not your Greek tragedy. Move along. Voyeurs. Yeah, I said it. I've been through it. Still go through it. Anyways, and you cannot mistake classic autism for anything else. Asperger's is a very mild version of the classic autism and therefore much more common and much more easily mistaken for other mental disorders or for normal eccentricity and social withdrawal. I was misdiagnosed about 1991 with attention deficit disorder and had essentially had Ritalin thrown at me with an increasing dosage every single year. Yeah, that. I'm not going to tell you trend diagnosis doesn't happen, but it's not nearly on as large as a scale as the media and conspiracy theorists would have you believe. So let me go ahead and continue. So the 60-fold increase was largely started by the change in definition in the DSM-4, and then it was promoted by several factors. First and foremost, originally, it was the fact that educational services were geared to getting the diagnosis. And anytime there's a benefit related to a psychiatric diagnosis, its rates jump enormously. Cause and effect, folks. Cause and effect. We discovered that autism was more than just what we know as classic autism. The numbers began to go up as more and more people began to get diagnosed. Increased knowledge in regards to a diagnosis pretty much always end up in increasing individuals getting that diagnosis because for the first time in their lives, they finally have a goddamn answer. And I can't tell you how important that answer was to the trajectory of my life. Okay? So, when that happened, naturally, the kids who had been, till that time, previously falling through the cracks called misfits, people who choose to misbehave, outcasts, now they're getting diagnoses. They're finally getting answers. And then people use that as an excuse to push this stupid, absolutely insane conspiracy theory. Although, unfortunately for us, the anti-vaxxers are by far not alone. But, neither here nor there. First and foremost, originally, it was the fact that educational services were geared to getting the diagnosis. So, we covered that. Secondly, the internet spread the idea of autism like wildfire. And many people incorrectly self-diagnose themselves with autism. Now, there is a particular hatred for those of us who have done self-diagnosis. This absolute visceral hatred of such individuals. And you can actually feel the contempt of this doctor speaking about them. Problem is, take a look around you. Look at the world we're currently in. We have people like RFK Jr. threatening to take away very, very needed medications, throwing us on some random organic farm and forcing us into slave labor for 2 years, saying that it will cure you. Yeah. Yeah. You have to think about it. When you have that kind of threat going around, and you think you might be autistic, and you see what's happening, you see what ICE is doing. ICE has been an absolute goddamn menace to the disability community as a whole. And you're wondering why people aren't going in to get a professional diagnosis? Are you smoking crack? Have you been at all paying attention with what's going on in the world right now? You think those people want RFK Jr. to have access to that information, considering what we've already seen? Because put down the crack pipe and sit down. Educate yourself, for the love of God. That kind of rhetoric does not encourage an individual to seek an official diagnosis. They're going to hide themselves to protect themselves. Okay? Quit with the whole condemnation of self-diagnosis, because here's the real truth nobody wants to talk about or have a conversation about. All diagnosis begins with self-diagnosis. You have to suspect first that you might be autistic before you take the steps in order to test and see if you actually have it or not. Literally everything starts at self-diagnosis. So take that condescending sneer out of you, doctor. It's unbecoming for a medical professional to act that way. I said it. Let me go ahead and continue here. So, it was that educational services were geared to getting the diagnosis. We went through that. And so the differences in definition and differences in the application of the definition and the fact that educational benefits have been associated with it, that's what caused the 60-fold increase, not vaccines. We know from very conclusive studies that vaccines do not cause autism. It is literally like the one thing we know for absolute certain. We don't know what causes people like me. What we do know is it's not vaccines. That is like the one solid fact that is like carved into stone at this point. Let me go ahead and continue. Summers, as we're talking, I can't help thinking about some of the countless people out there who have struggled their entire lives who get a diagnosis of autism as an adult. And it's like a lightning bolt moment for them. Everything suddenly makes sense. How can that be a bad thing? It's not. But this neurotypical doctor is going to tell us that it is. Because us autistic fucks spend our entire lives having the entire globe try to gaslight us into being what they want us to be. Believe me, it's a thing. Francis, I think it's definitely true that human distress looks for an explanation, and different periods of time come up with different explanations that are suddenly very popular. Here we go, folks. This is the condescension. Everyone jumps on the bandwagon. I am so tired of people saying, you want autism because you think it's cool. Oh yes, it is totally cool to be looked down upon by everyone and treated like I'm 6, in spite of the fact that I'm 41 years old. I have an associate's degree in graphic design, and I've been living on my own and taking care of myself since I was 19 years old. Fact. I am so tired of that, but you just wanted to be cool. You jumped on the bandwagon. You were just wanting an answer, and I had 3 different diagnostic teams give me the exact same diagnosis without consulting one another. If you have a problem and think I was not diagnosed correctly, please take it up with those 3 teams. With the neurologist, the psychologist, the psychiatrists that were on each of the said 3 teams that gave me the exact same diagnosis. How do you account for that, doctor? Is that me jumping on a bandwagon? Well, your case is unique. In actuality, it's not. It's really not. But you just want to because you just want answers. Okay, but no one looking for answers wants to find something that will get them fucking ostracized. Because that's what they don't tell you about getting the autism diagnosis. All of a sudden it's like you have an acne label, a sign over your head that everyone can see that declares your diagnosis, and from that moment forward, that's all anybody sees. We don't sign up to be on the bandwagon for a lifetime of ostracization, for a lifetime of gaslighting, for a lifetime of living solidly underneath the poverty line. The kind of life that can turn on the dime of a mad president with delusions of grandeur and his butt-monkeyed worm-brain RFK Jr. Think any of us want that? How about the whole world trying to tell us we are defective, wrong, and that we have to pretend neurotypicalness to the point of their satisfaction to be worthy of basic human decency? Yeah, sure, sign me right up for that. Do you all even listen to yourselves? Do you? Yeah, sign me up for a lifetime of ostracization, living beneath the poverty line, and having everybody and their mother stare at me as less than for the rest of my existence. Sure, I want to jump on that right away. But maybe you're hoping for answers in the wrong place. Then please, speak to those 3 teams. Tell them with your enhanced Google degree about how they're wrong. Please. Somebody provide a camera. I'm gonna need popcorn. He says he's sympathetic to people who feel autism is an explanation for their problems, and sometimes it is, and then it's very worthwhile. Some people have been identified who would have been missed, myself included. For them, it can be very useful, but for the vast majority of people who carry the diagnosis now, it's questionable. And second and third opinions would be useful. I had, doctor. Do you really have the balls to say that everybody, the majority of the people who self-diagnose are not really autistic? Because I feel more along the lines of we are in an uncertain world that has already shown us how little it regards people with disabilities under this current administration. Nobody is signing up to get officially diagnosed because we are afraid those fuckers are going to start something. Okay? But anyways, this does provide a good point. So we're going to move over here now. Now, how the DSM-4 classified autism. Now, it was published in 1994 and active until 2013. Now, let's take a look at something. I want to get it 1 year before the DSM-4 came out. It's going to make sense here in a moment. Here we go. Here we go, folks. All right. We'll first take a look at this here. Now, 2000, we were still firmly within the DSM-4 era, where I can tell you there was, during that time period, an explosion of diagnoses. But let's take a look here. So, let's go with birth year, 1994. Let's start. 1992. It was 1 in 150. 1994, right before the DSM-4 came out, 1 in 150. DSM has been out for 2 years. 1996 to 2004. You can see the rates here. 1 in 125. Okay? 1998, as more knowledge became more well known. This is like when you had people like Tony Atwood be coming out. That was when Temple Grandin was about around getting ready to start publishing her first books. Within this time period is when WrongPlanet.net first came online. Yeah, so even further knowledge, and with the more solidified presence of the internet making information that more easily accessible, you can see what I'm saying here. Now, 2000, 2008, 1 in 88. So, you're like, but Tiff, look at those numbers. They keep getting more and more and more as it goes up. That's got to be an epidemic, right? But look at where it started. This right here is what you need to be looking at. Because those are the years that the DSM-4 came out, with Asperger's in there, as well as PDD-NOS, or Pervasive Developmental Disorder Not Otherwise Specified, which we used to call, or I did at least, the kitchen cabinet thing, where you know it's autism-like, but it's not quite matching what was then known as Asperger's, although nobody uses it anymore because its name came from a fucking Nazi. But you get my point. You see what I'm saying, right? You've got a solid time period here between 1992 to about around 2004 where things stayed about around the same. Excuse me. And the reasons, when you look at these numbers, become very, very clear. Increase of awareness almost always leads to increase in diagnosis. So, if we go back here, and you say all you have to do is find a school teacher or a principal and ask them the question, teachers and principals who did not go to medical school, they went to become educators. They are not experts in the medical field. They are not diagnosticians. And make this stupid ass comment? Yeah. Just saying. And on that note, folks, we're going to go ahead and close out for this one. We don't get very many views on this channel. And the few we do tend to get removed from time to time. So don't forget to hit the like button. Hit subscribe. As always, folks, please don't forget to hit the comments And make sure that you're still subscribed, because we're going to be back tomorrow on Sunday with our Snake Oil Salesman series. I do appreciate your time this morning, and as always, we here at Spilling Tea absolutely do. Hope you have a good one. I will see you all next time. Bye-bye, everyone.